What's up, Taiwan? I'm Brossard with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Lawmakers have agreed to continue funding Taiwan's first prototype of a domestically made submarine. It's part of an almost $8 billion project which aims to build a fleet of 7 submarines. But as Jaime Okan reports, funding for much of the rest of the project is less secure.
A proud day in Taiwan's naval history. Last year, the launch of Taiwan's first submarine prototype was being celebrated. But now, the entire program of 7 vessels is in jeopardy. For the past few months, lawmakers from both major political parties have gone back and forth about whether to continue domestic submarine production. But on Wednesday, legislators agreed that $18 million would go to continue funding the first prototype to finish its testing.
这个跟决心没有关系。这个潜舰国造是一个很好的政策，但是你有目的嘛，你有方法嘛，你有手段嘛，你的合约框架是如何执行，细节如何规范？那中间如果中共犯台，你生产线停了，这个时候的合约还有保险这些东西都要讨论。
The submarine program was initiated by former President Tsai Ing-wen from the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, in 2016. As Taiwan's 2 active submarines are almost 40 years old. But for many lawmakers from the opposition Kuomintang, or KMT, the problem stems from the high cost of building these vessels. The total proposed cost of Taiwan's submarine program is roughly $7.6 billion and aims to build 7 submarines over 13 years. The challenge now is for Taiwan to approve the next part of the budget for 2026, which will likely face more opposition from the KMT. But many supporters of the program say these systems are crucial for Taiwan's defense.
如果要减列或者删除这一件事情呢，对我们以后武器的研发不但会有很大的影响，甚至对于相关的厂商，他也再也不要去跟我们台湾的政府合作。
Taiwan reportedly worked with contractors from the US, South Korea, and the UK to build its first prototype. Facing threats from neighboring China, which claims Taiwan as its own and now has the world's largest navy, Taipei plans to use the sub to counter Beijing's aggression. While discussions on how the submarine will be used are ongoing, analysts in Taiwan say that for the military, the most important priority is to secure funding. And that means more engagement with lawmakers on all sides.
冻结与否，这个绝对是这个立院的委员他们的权利，所以我会觉得这边还是有赖于海军如何去跟现在的一个党团，或者是最基本就是国防外交委员会这些相对来说比较更为对国防更为专业的委员能够有更多的互动。
The prototype submarine, also known as the Haikun, is about halfway through the testing needed before it can be commissioned. And while the budget for its future is now secure, the remainder of the fleet remains in limbo. Hank Xu and Jaime Okan for TaiwanPlus.
Former Taiwan President Ying-jeou has called for greater cross-strait cooperation and exchanges while in a meeting with a top Chinese official. Ma met with the head of China's Taiwan Affairs Office, Song Tao, as he led a group of Taiwanese students on a cultural exchange. It's Ma's second trip to China this year. During his meeting with Song, Ma called recent student exchanges a remarkable success and reiterated his belief in the need to uphold the 1992 consensus and oppose separatism. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council expressed concerns about Ma's statement, saying he should not risk undermining Taiwan's status. Thousands of people gathered outside the opposition Kuomintang headquarters to protest proposed legal amendments that could make it harder to recall public officials. Tiffany Wong reports.
The Bluebird movement is back. Despite the cold, thousands of people joined civil society organizations outside the opposition Kuomintang headquarters, angered by what they say is abuse of power in the legislature. Earlier this week, KMT legislators barricaded the room where they were set to have cross-party discussions on amendments that could tighten regulations on recalling public officials, effectively stopping the ruling Democratic Progressive Party from voting. The KMT and allies unanimously passed the preliminary review, and scenes of the consequential 3-minute meeting spurred many to join the protests.
实在是看不下去，国民党这样子封锁，直接把国会的整个议场封锁。我
们今天来这里，我们就是要告诉他们说，我们不好惹，人民 人民比你们立法院的人数还要多，还要重要，我们人民比你们大。
At the heart of it all is the contentious issue of recalls. The KMT and its allies are trying to tighten the rules over how recalls are launched and passed, something they say is needed to prevent fraud and frivolous votes. But protesters believe the changes will, in effect, remove voters' right to launch recalls. And while an investigation has been launched into the disputed preliminary vote, the KMT says they did nothing wrong. They launched their own counter-protest just meters away from the Bluebird gathering, playing music and shouting at the protesters. But the crowd of Bluebird protesters grew throughout the night, with organizers reporting 6,000 participants. Politicians, musicians, and activists gave speeches in support of the movement.
遇到民众要抗议的时候，也不敢有任何人出来面对，只会放着没有经过版权授权的音乐，在这边干扰合法的集会。
The legislature is set to vote on another KMT-supported set of amendments to the Recall Act on Friday. And demonstrators say they'll be there to protest again and make sure lawmakers hear their voices. Klein Wang and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's former Vice Premier Zhang Wen-san has pleaded not guilty to corruption charges in his first court appearance. Zhang is a leading figure in the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. He's accused of taking a bribe of more than $150,000 to broker a development project while he was mayor of the northern city of Taoyuan. Prosecutors have recommended a 12-year sentence for the charges. Several others are also indicted in the case, including a former executive of Formosa Plastics Group. The government is flagging areas of Taiwan that are now more prone to earthquakes. As Rick Glauert reports, it comes after changes to the country's seismic geography since a massive, deadly earthquake earlier this year.
Life is changing for residents here in southern Taiwan. They're more aware of the unstable ground beneath them. This year, they've experienced double the number of usual quakes. Taiwan is no stranger to earthquakes, sitting on the boundary of two tectonic plates. But this has become a new seismic hotspot. 8 months ago, a 7.2 magnitude quake hit Taiwan's east coast, killing 18 people and causing major damage. It also altered Taiwan's seismic geography. Previously stable faults in areas like Jiayi and Tainan in the southwest are becoming more active.
嘉义、台南这个区域的地震的频率是特别高的，是北部的这些桃竹苗啦、台中啦、高屏这边大概是它的10倍以上啊。但是它的地震的，以过去的经验来讲，最大的地震大概规模5点多，当然也有6点多的自灾的。
To mitigate disasters, Taiwan's government has relied on a state-of-the-art earthquake monitoring and alert system, and it's now officially flagging this region as a new sensitive area, urging locals to stay alert and follow building codes.
一条断层划设它的地质敏感区，可能要花到3到5年时间。早年调查的人力不是很多，再加上台湾经济发展非常快，很多地方马上就开发了。 现在你才发觉说，在敏感区里面，不要担心，之前这些建筑技术的规定都有提升了，尤其921之后。
Sitting on the Pacific rim of fire, Taiwan cannot avoid the dangers of earthquakes. But it's strictly adhered to safety practices, including holding preparedness drills, prevented greater loss of life during previous disasters. And while it remains difficult to accurately predict a quake, residents here will have to get used to their new geographical reality, where there is now more seismic activity than they've handled before. Joseph Wu and Rick Glauert for TaiwanPlus.
Russia's top general says the era of Cold War nuclear arms controls is over. Speaking in Moscow, Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov accused the U.S. of eroding trust and destroying key arms control treaties. He said Russia would strengthen ties with countries such as China, North Korea, and Iran in response. Washington, however, says Moscow caused the collapse of key nuclear arms agreements. Russia withdrew from the two countries' New START nuclear arms control treaty in 2023, citing U.S. support for Ukraine. Neither country has violated that pact. A new report from the U.S. Defense Department says corruption in the construction of missile silos was behind a purge in China's military. The Pentagon says China's ex-defense minister Li Shangfu played a central role in the scandal. The revelations are part of the Defense Department's annual assessment of China's military that it submits to the U.S. Congress. The report says corruption is prevalent throughout the Chinese military, despite efforts by Beijing to crack down on the graft. The report also highlights the rapid buildup of Chinese nuclear forces. It says China has stockpiled 600 nuclear warheads and is on track to have more than 1,000 by 2030. Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Macao to celebrate a quarter century of Beijing's rule of the island. It's his first visit since 2019, when anti-government protests rocked neighboring financial hub Hong Kong. Rosie Greninger reports.
Chinese President Xi Jinping touches down in Macau for a three-day trip marking 25 years of Beijing's rule over the former Portuguese colony. Xi praising Macau's success under the One Country, Two Systems framework that promised autonomy and wider civil liberties than mainland China.
25年来，具有澳门特色的一国两制实践，取得了举世公认的成功。 展现出勃勃生机和独特魅力，国家的发展日新月异，势不可挡。澳门的发展厚积薄发，未来可期。
On his third visit as president, the leader is set to discuss the island's development plans. Macau, the world's largest gambling hub, is heavily reliant on the casino industry, contributing to 80% of regional tax revenue. She wants to reduce that risky reliance, urging further diversification from gambling and a shift towards tourism and leisure. He is also meeting with Macau's leaders. In talks with the territory's outgoing chief executive, Xi expressed full recognition of Ho Yak-sing's leadership in implementing the One Country, Two Systems policy, according to state media. He will also attend the inauguration of the territory's new chief executive, former top judge Sam Ho-fai. While sharing their hopes for the incoming government, residents are welcoming Xi's visit.
咁所以而家我哋都係好開心，大家都平和，亦都好開心啦。阿習主席咧咁特別對我哋嘅感情嚟我哋呢度，所以我哋個個澳門人咧都覺得咧喺心裏頭都覺得好安慰啊，好開心嘅。
咁幫主要都係講嗰個經濟上啦，澳門主都係一個比較細嘅地方啦，如果經濟比較搞得上咧，就整體嚟講民生就好好多嘅。
But despite Xi's efforts to show a united and strong front in Macau, there are issues lurking beneath the surface. Some of the territory's 700,000 strong population say there are areas in need of improvement, including living conditions and public transport. While others claim One Country, Two Systems has not provided the democracy it vowed. Pro-democracy activists say there is a strong sense of suppression, and civil society has fallen silent.
我承認我哋喺爭取民主度係一事無成嘅，但係我覺得喺過去播落嚟嘅種子咧，佢係有發芽嘅機會嘅。
But hopes to forge a new path towards democracy are looking unlikely, with incoming leader Ho-fai behind a 2019 ruling that heavily restricted freedom of assembly. And as Xi looks towards Macau's development, those underlying issues are still waiting to be resolved. Ryan Wu and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks for joining us here on What's Up Taiwan. Check out the TaiwanPlus app or our website and social media for more of our stories. Now, before we go, come on a trip through time as New York's subway puts cars dating from the 1930s back to the 70s back on the tracks for the holiday season. I'm Philip Brossard. Take care. See you next time.